Good evening. I welcome everyone to the September 12th regular board meeting. Thank you for joining us. We will open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Esta junta se lleva a cabo en inglés, pero contamos con servicios de traducción. Si alguien necesita ayuda, por favor, háganos saber y lo atenderemos. Should anyone wish to participate in citizen comment, you can still do so by signing up at the entry of the room and handing your form to Kim. Our virtual attendees had an opportunity to sign up before the meeting. Do we have any requests to modify the agenda? Hearing none, we will move forward towards the consent agenda. In this consent agenda, we have the minutes from the August 22nd regular meeting, August 24 workshop, vouchers and payroll, surplus, personnel report, contracts, and the financial report. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Julie.
Second.
We have a second by Laura. Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the consent agenda as presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Catherine. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have our citizen comments. And I believe we do have. Olga, you'll be granted 3 minutes. Kim will keep a timer and the timer will go off once you reach your 3-minute limit.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I am Olga Jimenez. I am the leadership program coordinator at CAFE, which CAFE stands for the Community of the Advancement of Family Education. We are enhancing our current leadership program. It is working with the City Council, School Board, and County Commissioners. We are very excited about this opportunity as our goal is to be able to promote, engage community, educate some of our community members as well. Before the pandemic, CAFE hosted community forums to inform the community of city projects, new laws, policy changes, and then who's running up next. It could be from city council to, voting for superintendent, and just all that aspects of the community involvement. So I wanted to share that we will attend tonight's meeting, and then our Leadership Academy mission is to serve and represent underserved community reps who wish to strengthen their leadership skill, make connections, inform the community of other projects that are going on, invite our community to engage also in these meetings, and then just kind of learn and kind of partner with the school board and let you know that we will try to do our best to be in person. We might have an opportunity to also do hybrid. Again, we are hitting the winter seasons, but just want to make sure that we're also safe and our ambassadors are as well. We are going to serve 4 different counties between Grant, Okanagan, Chelan, and Douglas, total of 20 ambassadors attending city and county commissioner meetings and as well as school board meetings. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Olga. If we have no further citizen comment, we'll move on to our special presentation. Dr. Kalahar?
Excellent. Thank you. And it is a very special presentation, so I'm excited about that. And Liz is going to pop that up on the screen there for us. And got my handy dandy clicker so I can take us through. But this evening, I really want to take our board and the community through an updated demographic information for our district and a look into some of the data. And you'll notice that some of the data that we're presenting tonight is presented in a little different format. So I'm excited to share that. At our last board meeting back in August, we shared an update about our strategic plan and the available data surrounding our Big 6 student outcomes. In addition to that data, there have also been some updates to the school report card recently. So that's what I'm going to share with you. Maybe. Oh, there we go. Nope. There we go. Excellent. So during this presentation, I'm going to review who we are in the Wenatchee School District, the Washington State Report Card tool for K-12, and then comparison of cohort Smarter Balance data with peer schools. And that data is not the most recent data, but it's a year old, but it's a great look at the SBA data in comparison to schools that have similar demographics. So I'm excited to share that with you. Wrong. Okay. Let's see here. The Wenatchee School District students, teachers, and staff reflect the diversity and richness of Wenatchee. Through high quality instruction, social and emotional support, and career connected learning, we are helping each and every student achieve success and tap into their limitless potential. And so some of what you're going to see tonight reflects on certain aspects of the educational experience that our students get, and it leans very heavily on the academic side of things. What we leave out tonight in our conversation are other things like art, music, fitness, social studies, many of our electives, all of the career and technical education, our social and emotional growth, extracurricular activity, and relationships. So there's a big picture when we look at what all of our students are engaged with. But tonight we'll focus mostly on English language arts, a lot of math, and a little tiny bit of science when we talk about the Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science. It's a funny little noise when I click. Hello, there it is. Okay, perfect. So who we are in the Wenatchee School District. We have 16 schools and programs, and illustrated here we have 7 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, an early learning center, a technical skills center, a comprehensive high school, an alternative high school, and 1 K-8 parent partnership school, and an 18 to 21 vocational transition program. And that encompasses the wide variety of aspects of our educational program for our students. We also have 890 caring and compassionate adults who are our full and part-time certificated and classified employees who take pride in serving our students. They also prioritize the young people in our community. They care deeply about our students and working through numerous challenges each and every day to support our students. These relationships are what help leverage our students' success. I am just on struggle street here, so thank you for your patience, folks. I do have the clicker in control right now, so we're good. But our students come to our schools with unique lived experiences, and all of them in need of individual attention. And so, as I said earlier, our students are so much more than what you'll see this evening. The data does not define the whole child or how our students are future ready. And so here's an interesting visual for you. And when you look at that 7,414, those of you that are familiar with school board meetings will notice that that looks like a lot of students. And that is a head count of students. So it's a different look than what we look at when we have a budget conversation. A budget conversation is more along the lines of 6,900 students or so. So there's like a 500 student difference. When we look at budgets, we look at head count and who, or FTE, sorry, we look at FTE and not head count. So this is kind of a head count perspective. So 7,414 students are involved in our school in some capacity. Some of those students are full-time equivalents, but some of our students are also running start students who do not necessarily count when we talk budget. So these are some great numbers here. And what you see is the diversity in our district. And so we have our 54% Latinx, and then we have our students with our almost 23% English language learners. We have 441 students experiencing some sort of homelessness. And then we have over 1,000 students who are migrant, and then over 1,100 students on IEPs. And so that's kind of a comprehensive look at who we are as a district. And again, our students are not defined by a demographic or a category in which they fall, but each area helps give us an opportunity to understand potentially someone who might be a little bit different than us. Okay. And so I'm going to jump into some state report card data. And I know our board is familiar with the state report card. I'm not so sure how familiar our community is with the handy and extremely useful tool. But I want to share this information with you to keep you keep you up to date and informed. And in addition, the data was just updated last week as well. So you'll have some access to 22-23 data as opposed to some older information as well. So if you've ever logged on to the state report card, you recognize this. I'm a little bit behind. Sorry about that. You recognize this opening slide there on the left, which has all the important numbers. So our school and district performance across multiple student measures, such as assessment proficiency, graduation rates, student growth, and discipline. There's also data on classroom teachers, what our teachers' qualifications are, and then student-teacher ratios. There's also some school and district finance information as well. But the details and information that you see on these slides are very intentional and often are very intentionally used and often daily used by various leaders in our district to not only determine growth, ascertain how we compare to other schools and districts, but also to identify gaps and build plans of improvement holistically. And the nice thing is anybody can access this information, literally can look up any district in the state, and you can drill down to any school in the district at all. And I'll show you some examples of that as we go through this. So here's some basic demographics on the report card. You see that 7,414 number. You also see the gender and then race and ethnicity. Goodness. Slow it down. Okay, and then we have the program characteristics here. So another look at this, and you can see some of these slides are a little bit, holy cow. There's a lot of information on there. So a little bit overwhelming, but you can see here from program characteristics, anything from our English language learners to our low-income students, to our highly capable, to migrants, to Section 504 students. That is the whole demographic program characteristic page. It's a lot of information on there, but very useful information when we're looking and planning for the future. And then we get to some of the important data, and this is the data that has been most recently updated along with some of the demographics from 22 and 23, is we get to our Smarter Balance assessment data. And you can see here that when you look at it, it's chunked into two sections. And the first section is called general. So that is the Smarter Balance assessment and the Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science. And so those are our data fields there. And as you can see, our 22-23 data is reflected here for the entire district. That's everyone comprehensively in the district. And then on the right side, you see the alternative information, which is referred to as WA-AIM. And that's the Washington Access to Instruction and Measurement. And that's an alternative assessment based on alternative achievement standards aligned to the Common Core state standards. And so you can see that data in there. And so it's comprehensively aligned there for all students. Then you can see the breakdown by gender. And again, move on to that. We have the ethnicity breakdown here as well. And then we jump to that crazy slide with a lot of information, but you can see the breakdown there from our English language learners, students that might be in foster care, migrant and non-migrant, and then the whole host of students there. So it's a breakdown where you have the Smarter Balance assessment and the science assessment, and then also the alternative information as well. A lot of colors, a lot of stuff. Do not feel like you have to digest this all in one spot. The next slide is one that helps me a little bit understand kind of the breakdown of what happens per grade level in each of these areas. And if you look at just the English language arts part at the top, you can kind of see what we get when we move from third grade, fourth grade to fifth grade. We kind of see a natural progression of improvement. You look at sixth, seventh, and eighth, there's a little bit of that natural progression of improvement. So English language arts has those nice lines. Math doesn't really have those nice lines. We still have some work to do in math. And that's where math instructional identity can help us with some of that work. And we have a variety of tools that we'll be putting into place there. And then you can see that that science is in that same area. We need to have some work there. The Washington State report card also gives you a ton of other information. And we referenced it on the first slide, but here are some other things that you can look up, not only for the Wenatchee School District, not only for each school in the Wenatchee School District, but any school in the entire state. So there's a lot of information and a lot of data there. And the nice thing, when you click on each of these areas, you can look at the data in different chunks and different fashions. So that's a little snippet into the state report card. I wanted to pause here for a minute and see if there were maybe any questions or comments from the board before we jump into the cohort data.
This is nice. I'm glad to see finally looking at some data.
Yes, good. Correct. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, excellent. We'll jump in here. And so I'll set the stage here. The data sets here are compared with other individual schools that have similar demographic makeup as our own schools. And so often what you see when you look at cohorts is you look at, here's the Wenatchee School District, and here's a cohort of other school districts that are very similar, right? So we're seeing a lot of that data. What this does is it breaks down schools and it compares them to like schools that have the same demographic. And the demographic is looked at from low socioeconomic status, English language learners, and students on IEPs. And I'll show you some examples of how that works. But really, every single school that we look at has a different set of comparative schools. And so for me, it was very interesting to see this because I hadn't seen our school districts or schools compared in this fashion. So I thought it was interesting. This data was compiled by the researchers at Stern Analytics, and it does represent data from 21-22. So to set the stage, let me not catching up. Here we go. To set the stage for these slides and to contextualize the information, the school year is 2021. And during that year, we have some information that was happening at that time. And we know that we are going back to school. Students were returning to learning full time, but we also know that we saw the Delta variation hit us at the beginning of that year. We were wondering, oh no, are we going to actually make it? And we did, but also during that year in January, we saw the Omicron hit us as well. So we had different pieces of that. We also implemented a variety of learning recovery efforts during this year. Some of that came in the form of some teacher training on differentiated learning, and then after school care. And this was an interesting year because it was one of the only years that our students will ever experience smarter balance testing twice in 1 year, because the state pushed it to the next year. So we had it in the fall and then we had it in the spring. But anyway, that just kind of sets the stage of what was happening this year in the data. And we'll jump into what this data looks like. Okay, so this is our first comparison. So we're viewing cohort data in a different way. And one of the things that is also represented here is we're looking at those different districts, but we're truly comparing the schools. We're not comparing the districts. So Wenatchee High School as compared to the other schools in that list based on low socioeconomic status, our English language learners, and then students with IEPs. And the interesting thing here is, and this was not something that I knew, my data specialist had to share this with me, but this data is actually based on students that took the test. And so it's not the school's data. So the school's data may look differently than Wenatchee High School's free and reduced lunch data may not be 57%, but the students that took the test in 21-22 in that spring, that was what was representative there. So it's true data when we think of that. And one of the things that I also want to share is that the students that test in the Wenatchee School District, our numbers are really good. I looked them up today and we had 96.7% of our students tested in the ELA, in the English Language Arts category. and 96.4% tested in math. So this is a good number, but you can kind of see the representation there. And I want to make special reference to the Cascade High School there. Cascade High School in Everett, not Cascade High School up the way. So it's a different school. So when we look at the data, which I'll show you here. So the first data set is our on-time graduation rate. So you see Cascade High School is right there with us. And automatically, as I was looking at the data, I was thinking, oh, wow, Leavenworth's doing all right. And in actuality, it's Everett. And I'm sure Cascade is doing all right. I'm sure Leavenworth's doing great, but this is actually a different school. So just to kind of look at those comparison numbers is a little bit different way of looking at the data. You do see that Eastmont is in this and Moses Lake as well.
Can I interrupt with a question?
Yep.
So just because the prior slide was only reflecting students in various groups, like free and reduced lunch, English language learners, and SPED, is this on-time graduation for all students?
The other one is for all students too. It's just that is the breakdown of who took the test. So out of 100% of the test takers, 57% of the test takers had free and reduced, 17% were ELL, and then 13% were on IEPs. So it's still, we still had 100% of test takers.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this is, goodness, then this is, yes, 100% of all those students. Yep. Yeah. But thank you for that clarification. And one more. So this is when we get into some of the data here. So we have our English language arts data. So these are the students that were proficient there at grade 10, and you kind of have the breakdown of the students, or sorry, the other schools that are involved. And then you can see math on the other side.
Corey, can I ask a quick question?
Sure, Catherine, you scared me, but that's okay.
I'm hiding. How were these high schools chosen? Why were these particular schools chosen?
So I'll go back. They were chosen as just a set here of the closest schools in relationship to Wenatchee High School with regard to free and reduced lunch, English language learners, and special students that are on IEPs. So that's how this data set was chosen. They took
From all of Washington State.
correct.
Matched these three categories, and these were the high schools they came up with, the closest
Yes.
matched. Okay.
Absolutely. And you can kind of see that there's a little bit of a disparity between the numbers on here when we look at the lowest being 51% when we look at free and reduced lunch. And then the highest looks like it's 64%. So there is a little bit of variance in there, but that's how they were chosen. So great question, Catherine.
Corey, can I clarify something? I believe you gave the name of a consultant firm who selected the comparable. So this was done by a third party.
Correct.
Professional and independent.
Yep. Stern Analytics. They do the data for a platform called Homeroom. Awesome questions. Okay, so I'm going to jump into middle school. So we're going to jump into middle school data here. And for this particular slide, I randomly chose 7th grade so that you could look at this. And here's the interesting thing. You're not going to find similar schools on each of these comparative pieces once again. So the schools that are compared with Foothills Middle School are demographically similar. The schools compared with Orchard Middle School are demographically similar, and the schools compared with Pioneer are demographically similar. So you'll see some cross-referencing in there, but they're not all the same. So it's kind of an interesting look at data, and I knew that Laura would appreciate that. It's kind of cool to see it. Again, to Julie's point, the numbers and the scores are the things that we need to work on and improve, but it's an interesting look at where we are with our data. And I will have to check with Ron Brown. He's not able to be with us here tonight, but how can we get the same analytical breakdown from Stern for the 22-23 data? That would be an interesting for us to see, okay? Here is the data for math. And it's just interesting. So when you look at this, you want to applaud Orchard, but Orchard is being compared to different schools. And if you then extrapolate schools that have different demographics, then Orchard may be placed in a different ranking. Even though we are applauding Orchard, that's good. They did great. But it's just about how the data set is compiled. So it's very interesting. And again, we do recognize and honor that we have some work to do in math. Moving on to elementary. This is how I just picked two randomly with the elementary. We have all of the data that we can share with the board and the community and can take a deeper dive into. But I picked John Newberry and Mission View kind of at random to share with you tonight. And you can kind of see where John Newberry falls along the continuum there. If you look at free and reduce, our ELL, and our students on IEP. Again, Cascade's kind of a popular name for schools that we're seeing also as an anecdotal side to the data as we look here. But we'll jump into what it looks like. I chose fifth grade because our executive director of learning and teaching, Heidi Buss, said fifth grade, Corey, is the culmination of the work that happens in elementary school. So let's take a look at that. And so you can kind of see here again, we immediately want to think, oh, John Newberry didn't do well in the English language arts category, but again, it's in the contextual framework of the schools that they're compared to. And we look at math and we want to say, well, John Newberry did, very well in math, but again, it's all about the demographic similarities between these particular schools. But I also think it's a striking way for us to look at data in a new and unique fashion that I rather enjoyed. Okay, this is the Mission View data. And you can see that as far as free and reduced lunch is concerned, we have anywhere from 69% to 78% in this continuum, and Mission View kind of lands there in the middle with 74. And then their English language learner population at 43% and students on IEP at 13. And you can see here in this particular data set, Columbia Elementary also fell on the same demographic characteristics. So they are involved in this one as well. And here's where you see the data land for English language arts in the fifth grade there on the left, and then math fifth grade on the right. So our district Big Six is our guiding document and our plans. 3 of the Big Six were represented in the data that you saw today. We had graduation rate, English language arts, which is reading on grade level and beyond at third grade. We also saw math, and so ready for algebra as part of that Big Six. When we presented last time, I believe, Julie, you had asked, let's see some more comparative cohort data. And so we wanted to share that with you tonight. We have a variety of ways in which we plan to improve our scores over the next few years with our strategic plan. And we also want to make sure that we're sharing, well, tonight, actually, you're going to hear about high quality instruction when we have our trainers presentation next. So I'm excited about that. And again, this data is particularly focused on the academic areas of ELA, math, a little bit of science in there when we looked at the report card. But we want to make sure that we keep data and our information relevant. We want the board and our community to get the information and data that they want. And so we plan to come back and bring more information that you'd like to see and understand. And so would love to hear maybe what kinds of additional information and or questions you would like for us to address next time. Oops.
This is really good. Thank you for providing this additional information. And I'm excited to hear about the plans moving forward because, regardless of where we fall in comparison to other school districts or other schools in particular, when we have 18% of students meeting proficiency in math in the fifth grade, that's not a lot to write home about. And I know that it's not because our staff doesn't care or they aren't trying or we aren't doing the best that we think we can do at the moment, but there's something in the code that we haven't cracked yet. And we definitely need to crack that. In terms of what I'd like to see in the future is I would love to see, even though I know we had COVID, as best as we possibly could, some longitudinal data so that if we indeed have a dip during COVID years, 2 or 3 years, whatever it is, that we acknowledge that and move forward from it.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura.
I am not going to make much comment because it's a lot of data and it's going to take a lot of absorption. And I do support what Laura says about longitudinal data, although I'm a little more focused about being ready to use it in the future. Data is there for us to learn from and improve from. And I just have one unusual comment. There were a handful of outliers there. There was a school at 53% when everybody else at 35 and one in the 40s in the math.
Yeah.
It would be, and as we move into professional development and learning, and actually that's the real engine room, it might be interesting to learn a little bit more about the outliers. It may be a statistical anomaly, or it may be that somebody's doing something that we can learn from.
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah, I appreciate the presentation of all of this and breaking it down into comparable groups and understanding how that works. It is a lot of data to process. I will just say a few things that jump out at me is when we are comparing down to the school level and we see a particular, this grade 5 with 2 or 3 local schools in it, 1 of ours and 2 across the river, and we're so substantially low. It kind of is what are we doing wrong? What's the formula? But then in the same vein, I'm that constant struggle of you don't want to find yourself teaching to a test just to improve what is, reflected in the report card. So I have faith in all the tools and things that we're implementing, independent from the Smarter Balance testing itself. But I do look forward to, bringing this all up globally and however that works.
Thank you, Julie.
Catherine, do you have any comments, questions?
I think I agree. The presentation was wonderful. I love to see not these exact numbers, but numbers and data like this. I would kind of like to see a little bit, and it's straight, but I understand what you're saying of how we have the comparison of the schools. I want to see a broader picture. With this explanation. I like it. I think it's very good and very informative. I want to see kind of just in a broader snapshot of where we stand in the state. I understand we're looking at our comparable demographics, but it causes me to be interested in more precisely a bigger picture of where we're at comparatively for the whole state, I guess. We're looking at 11 schools here, I think is the comparable demographics, but I'd like to see us where we stand with the rest of the state.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to give a quick analysis of what I think. I think this is great data. I think oftentimes we tend to look at our neighboring school districts and say, oh, Cascade, Eastmont, Moses Lake, but we fail to recognize that our demographics are vastly different than our neighboring school districts. I like what Corey said, these demographics don't define our students, but they do factor in regards to how we can serve them and the results that we get. I'm going to continue to be this squeaky wheel and let's just look at the data, what it is. We have over 50% of our non-English language learners attaining, making standard or at standard, meeting standards when under 10% of our English language learners are making those. So just that opportunity gap, it's wide. And although the demographics don't define our students, we really need to take a deeper dive into that aspect of our students. Again, kudos. I'm hoping we can get, continue with that cohort.
Yeah.
And ideally, we would like to see our schools move up or those percentage increase. I'm looking forward to seeing this data with our this year's or last year's data or whatnot. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Can I beg permission to have two comments after what the president said? Let's not be demographically defined. This is part of equity, that if we succeed with all students, our goal should be, in a sense, to make demographics matter less. So it's fine to compare, but if we look at long-term development, let's not be demographically defined. Everybody has the same potential.
Oh, absolutely. And I think ideally, it would be fabulous to get our numbers to go up across the board and not have one demographic of student population carry that weight or carry us behind.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for the time. I appreciate it. And I would like to welcome Executive Director of Learning and Teaching, Heidi Busk, to the podium. And she's going to welcome her trainers and our Wenatchee School District team. Oh, you need to get the clicker. Yes, you got to get it. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity today to share about our district trainers and update you on the work that we're doing this year. We're excited to be here tonight. As you know, we've moved from a professional development model in the past several years where we had an instructional coach in our elementary schools and an instructional coach in our middle schools. And this year, we had to change it up a little bit. And fortunately, we had the opportunity to hire 4 amazing district trainers who are providing professional development to our entire district. It's a lofty feat, a lofty goal to do this, but they are working really hard to make this happen. Tonight, we would like to introduce you to our district trainers, and we would also like to share about our professional development focus and how it supports our strategic plan, and also how it addresses the equity work that was identified in our equity review. So at this time, I would like to invite our team members to introduce themselves.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Lewis, and I'm the K-5 MTSS, which is Multi-Tiered Systems of Support trainer.
Hi, I'm Betsy Streen, and I'm the 612 MTSS trainer.
I'm Brittany Acho, and I'm the 612 ELD or English Language Development trainer.
Hi, my name is Anaisa Lemus Pulido, and I am the TK through 5th grade ELD trainer. Good evening. I'm Amber Burks. I am the Assistant Director of MTSS PK through 12.
A fabulous team. We're so excited. We're just waiting just a minute for it to pop open. There they are again, if you need to see their pictures. I'll back up just a little bit here. Back up, back up. I'm going the wrong way. How do I go backwards? I know. Oh, there it is. It's a different button. That's not the way mine works. Okay, there we go. We really came together and established our existence, why we exist when we first came together. And so we came up with this, which really defines the work we do. We exist to build instructional and collaborative capacity to ensure high levels of learning for all. And our vision is to build administrator and teacher capacity to increase achievement and close the equity gap system-wide. So the American Institute for Research explains that educational equity is achieved when all students receive the resources, opportunities, skills, and knowledge they need to succeed in our democratic society. That's our promise. Our promise is to build that foundation of diversity, equity, and inclusion from which each student emerges future ready. So we play a big part in helping that happen. I'm not good with this clicker. So through a guaranteed and viable professional development plan, we are working toward educational equity. Guaranteed means that every student, no matter which school they're in, which classroom they're in, we guarantee that they receive that same high quality instruction from teachers using the most effective instructional strategies. And viable means that it's feasible, it's doable, it's capable of working effectively and successfully.
So in order to achieve our goals, our mission, and the purpose that we exist, we knew that we had to be very, very intentional. As Heidi was talking about, we moved from a model where we had many more instructional coaches to now 4. And so we knew we had to be very intentional around our focus on the instruction that has the greatest impact on student learning. So what we did was we took a look at effect sizes that compare strategies that have the most effect, and we leaned into those. And those are the strategies that we have selected across our system. With our very intentional plan, we are working to equip teachers with the right tools and strategies to engage and interact with their students of diverse backgrounds. And then we are also supporting the number 3 here, focus, our instructional leaders to be able to lead this bold instructional leadership to change outcomes for our students.
So we shared with our teachers and our administrators our essential questions. Did I jump ahead too far? There we go. There we go. Right. Before we did that, we'll talk about this. So the professional development focus for the year addresses Big 6 number 1, providing high quality instruction for our diverse learners. Last board meeting, we presented our Big 6 data. And as you saw, we have growth opportunities for rigor and engagement. Our PD focus also addresses a need identified in our equity program review, equity gaps in achievement outcomes for multilingual learners. In particular, it addresses 3 of the focus areas really well. So focus area 1, access to learning opportunities. Focus area 2, instructional practices and policies. And focus area 3, curriculum, resources, materials, and policies. So really that focus on instruction and how do we best instruct in our classroom, moving from what works to what works best for our multilingual learners, which is essential. But these strategies that are essential work well for all of our students. They're really good strategies.
So when we had the opportunity to meet with all of our teachers in August and do a training, we shared these essential questions with them and said, this is really what we're going to be focusing on all year long. And those essential questions are, how can we collectively take ownership for accelerating the language development and content outcomes for our multilingual learners? And also, what high leverage strategies can we use to engage 100% of students in rigorous academic learning? So that's just a theme we're going to keep going throughout the year as we work with our teachers. Okay, the term essential strategies refers to high leverage strategies that increase engagement and accelerate learning. Essential strategies are excellent for all learners, but essential for multilingual learners and students with learning differences. They are guaranteed across a grade level and/or system. The term is parallel to priority or essential standards. The phrase was coined to emphasize that tight, evidence-based Tier 1 instruction across a system is foundational to the work of a professional learning community and MTSS processes. Guaranteeing effective instructional strategies or routines from grade level to grade level is a critical component of aligning systems to ensure guaranteed and viable instruction. And this year, we will provide professional development and support on language-focused strategies
These essential instructional strategies have been identified as what works best or having a high effect size. So you can see in our secondary schools, 6 through 12, we in August did a professional develop around academic discussions and getting all students engaged in academic conversations. And we will continue in October with academic vocabulary and language, and then in the spring with note taking and summarizing. And then with elementary, we're focusing in on academic discussions and then academic vocabulary and language. And you can see that in terms of our ELD, with secondary, we're focusing in on integrated ELD, and in elementary, we're talking about integrated and designated English language development.
All right, elementary is also continuing their focus on math instruction. Last year, we identified priority standards, created common pacing, and common formative assessments. Elementary math PD last year focused on procedural fluency and purposeful questioning. This year, we're digging deeper into engaging instruction, mathematical growth mindset through the mathematical practices, productive struggle, student discourse, and a problem-solving process with a language protocol. So all of the work in math this year is also language focused.
So our PD is language focused with an emphasis on getting students to talk. We no longer want silent classrooms. And we specifically came to staff in August saying, why is speaking or oral language so important and critical? Well, academic language is that formal register that we use in professional or academic settings for speaking and writing. It's not inherent. And so students have to learn and have to be taught how to speak in a very formal way, and not just our multilingual students, but all students. And so if we want students to read and write academically, they must speak the academic language first. Key click again. One more. So these are outcomes for our August professional development. For elementary and secondary, we built understanding about how to support our MLs through collective ownership of the 4 language domains, which are reading, writing, listening, and speaking. We explored why the WSD essential strategies are critical for diverse learners. And we helped to understand how to implement academic discussions for 100% engagement for all learners.
All right, and our August learning outcomes for math were to reflect on current practices and gain new insights into mathematical mindset and instruction, to understand the importance of building a mathematical mindset community through the standards for mathematical practices, and to deepen knowledge around how students learn to problem solve in mathematics using the try, discuss, connect routine or framework with the essential strategy language routines.
We would also like to share with you what our October professional development focus will be. So in October at elementary level, we are working on Essential Strategies for Diverse Learners Part 2. And this involves designated ELD strategies and supports for academic vocabulary and language structure, which is focused on listening and speaking. And in math,
we'll continue with our essentials math strategies for diverse learners. With the structure of a math lesson, we'll continue with that try, discuss, connect routine, along with the 3 reads language routine. We'll be talking about co-crafting questions and word problems and language routines for fact fluency and fact interview assessment.
at the secondary level, again, with the focus on academic vocabulary and language structure, we will continue Part 2. And that is a focus on academic vocabulary and language. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this important work that we are engaged in this school year. We look forward to providing updates as we move forward.
And do you have any questions for us?
Yes, I do. So going back up to your essential questions, I think it was called. Will you be applying the PLC questions to your questions to know how you're doing, what you need to do better and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yes, yes. yes.
And that, since I'm not in the world of instruction every day, can you summarize how much of a change is this PD approach from what's been done in the past?
So a couple of things. The PD approach is quite different because we have our district trainers providing the same professional development to every school, every teacher, every classroom throughout our district. So it's very common. So it's in district house trainers. So once we provide that training, they're actually right now, starting tomorrow, heading out to PLCs. So they're following up with our professional learning communities to help them with implementation, help them with questions and wonderings they might have, and then giving them an assignment to continue this work so that when we come back together in October, they'll be able to share what they've done, how it's going, and all of those pieces. So the professional development part is different in that respect, where we're not bringing in an outside trainer. And I know we've done that before. Our structured literacy was all in-house and very well done. We are now, and that was tier one, that focused on tier one instruction, that core instruction and that routine that we made sure was happening in every classroom. So this professional development is very much that way, where we are rolling out, this is best practice. This is what works best for our students. And then we're following up with that continued support. So the part that's about, if we're thinking about what's happening in the classroom and the professional development we're providing, we're not bringing something new. Students have been talking in classrooms for a long time. It's not a new practice, but it's an intentional focus on implementing that practice, understanding how essential that is for our students because of the high effect size of growth for them. So we didn't want to come in and say one more new thing. Here, go learn something brand new and start that. We wanted to say, let's build on the work you're doing. We saw in our data that our students weren't talking a lot in our classrooms. Remember, it was about that 40-some to 50% of students really having those conversations in the classroom, and that student talk exceeds teacher talk and all of those. So that data really informed our work. The professional development focus was also informed by our administrators saying, this is the work we want to do next. So it wasn't a brand new thing, but it's an intentional focus with support to help this happen. So when we go out and do our data walks this year, or our learning walks this year, and we collect data on our Big Six number one, we want to see our teachers using these strategies to elicit 100% student engagement. That's one of our data collection points. So we expect to see this happening all over because they've done it before. We're going to be more intentional. We're going to plan it in our PLC and talk about the instructional piece, that what do we do next and how is that going to support our students, and then come back and talk about how did it work? What did our data say? So does that answer your question?
That's really good news, and on a number of different levels. And one of the things that you mentioned is it's not something new, it's building what we already have, because we've heard teachers say so many times, we don't need one. If I ignore this initiative long enough, it'll be gone and we'll start something new. So we might as well not even bother.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So this sounds hopeful, like this is different. So I'm really glad to hear about that. So you talked about engagement, and the idea is to get, I think you just said 100% engagement in the classroom. So what other systemic results are you hoping to see if you came back to, at the end of the school year? What data points we'll be looking at and what will we see?
Yeah. So we'll look at our Big Six. Number one, the instruction, high levels of instruction for all students. And we should see the teachers using strategies to elicit 100% student engagement will be one of them that we should see increase, because the teachers have had professional development, how
Sure.
to use those strategies. The teacher notices when students aren't engaged.
Let me change my question a
Okay,
little bit.
all right.
What are the results that we're going to see in
Oh.
students?
Oh, yeah. So we are hoping to see great results. When students are talking about their academic language, when they're using that academic language and they're learning those sentence structures, we should see, and listening, speaking, reading, and writing using that academic language, we are hopeful to see an increase in our multilingual learners who meet proficiency on the WIDA.
Okay.
Because that's a rigorous assessment. So we know we have a lot of work to do in that area, but we hope to see when students are using that academic language, that language is on our assessments for WIDA. It's the language of school that they are using for science and social studies. So we didn't just train our ELA and math teachers. Our whole system learned about this. So we should see these strategies happening in every classroom. So we should see that. We're hopeful to see an increase. You saw some of the math work that Lisa is working with the elementary. Our students struggle on the Smarter Balanced Assessment whenever we have a problem we have to figure out, a word problem, a problem. How do we tackle that? So we see our data in that area needing to improve a lot.
Yeah.
And so when she talked about the framework with the language routine, that's teaching our kids how to not just look at a word problem and look at the numbers and see a key word that says more. So I think I'm going to add them together because we're learning about addition right now. So that happens a lot. They look at numbers, they word pick and number pick, and then they do an operation. They don't really understand how to break down that problem and understand what it means. So Lisa's working really hard with our elementary teachers to put that into place. And again, Laura, this is not something new. This is part of our math program. This routine is part of our math program, but we're going to get better at it so that we can bring in more language to help all of our students be able to access that. So we should see, hopefully, gains in our data. We know that our students are learning more. We should see our CFA data and be able to track that along the way. And we're also implementing using some of our SBA formative interim assessments that give us those dipsticks into how our kids are doing in relation to the questions they'll see on the Smarter Balanced Assessment. So we're putting a lot of pieces into place that really aren't new. We're just getting better at the things we do.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Well, I think this is fabulous. What I like the approach, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I know there was pockets within the district or schools or some classroom teachers were doing it, others were not.
Yeah.
But to see it as a district initiative,
Mhm.
I think it's great. And that consistency across all grade levels, I think it's fabulous. Just a quick question in regards to the language, the academic language. It sounds like we've completely moved away from, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, GLAD strategies.
Oh, no.
Are they
Yeah.
being
Oh, yeah.
incorporated into that? Okay.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
still a big piece of what we do, especially at the elementary level. Anaisa is right there. She's working and will be working with our elementary teachers to continue that work this year and support that. So yeah, and when we're talking about academic language and we're talking about a sentence patterning chart in GLAD, that's academic vocabulary and language that the kids are using in their learning sentence structure. They're singing a song while they're doing it. So yes, it's all part of it still.
So then that reminds me of the science of reading.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all there. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to get the end point and of a question, but I would go get there on a roundabout route, and that's on engagement. By the way, close the equity gap is what I was trying to clumsily say about demographics, that
Yeah,
if you succeed, the demographics are important in the data, but they're not the end point.
absolutely.
So engagement, and we have an absentee problem nationally,
Mhm.
particularly at high school. And so seeing discussion and the emphasis on participation and getting everybody interested and seeing that structure, that looks to me as a non-educator as a very good way to go.
Mhm.
And I'd like to kind of understand a little bit about exactly what academic vocabulary means and how it applies. From the professional point of view, it's more precision, more consistency in how you're teaching. I am confused when I'm volunteering in an elementary school. The students know technical words that I don't know because they're used in education today. On the other side, I would say there's an interest in people wanting to speak the language that they feel comfortable with. And so as the endpoint being engagement, how do you see getting precision in the techniques and the language and the definitions linking to having interesting words and language that students can relate to and feel engaged with?
Okay, you lost me at the last part.
Well, for a teacher, a technical word is fine. For a student where that's a strange word, not used outside school, their parents don't understand it. Is it a turn off or a turn on? How do you professionally get to the point where that engages them because it interests them as opposed to, gosh, this is technical jargon?
Yeah. So the vocabulary that we work with, and actually our trainers are, doing that next with that academic vocabulary. We have a routine, just like we do with our structured literacy routine. There's a vocabulary routine that we select the words from the complex text that students are going to be reading, whatever category or whatever subject that is in. And then we identify those words that are necessary for students to be able to understand that concept or that skill, that context. And then we teach those words with a routine. So the teacher models it, there's several steps to do it. In the end, they teach the definition. The students then practice using that word with partners. And then we have a discussion. So when we have that academic discussion, students know those words, they feel successful with those words. And then those words are part of a word bank that they can look at to access. And then we have complex sentence frames. So a starting of a sentence with maybe an academic word of however. We don't use however often in our language, and our kids don't, but that's a word that we want them to become familiar with and have it start roll off their tongue, because then when they read that complex text and they see that word however, they know however is signaling something. So then they're going to be able to understand that complex sentence. And when kids understand what they're learning and they can use the language of what they're learning and they get to talk to a partner in English, and oftentimes they use Spanish in our school district, they go back and forth. They help each other with, they start to ask a question in Spanish and then the other one answers in English. And that's awesome. We let them, that's perfect. However, they need to use language to understand meaning, but they feel successful and they're building relationships with the kids that they're talking to. They've got that safe environment that the teacher has created. And I know last year I'm going on and on, but this is really exciting for me. Last year we did a workshop and you talked about how do you create that safe environment. I don't know if you remember, I think it was Betsy and Alyssa came and did a workshop for you. And this is one of those ways that teachers create that safe environment. They teach kids how to have those conversations. They provide the academic language and support to have it so that kids can talk about what they're learning using the language of what they're learning. And then when we ask them to write, they feel confident being able to write it because they've already spoken it. And that's a word that they're starting to own or a concept they're starting to own. So it's just all connected. I hope that answered your question. I don't know if it did.
I think it was much larger than my question, but it puts my question as a small part of a big topic. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And these trainers and Amber are an amazing team, and you're going to see great things from them. And they are working hard and running back and forth from place to place. So if you see them, give them a thumbs up. Thank you.
Give them a round of applause, folks. Thank you so much. Thank you. really appreciate Heidi and Amber's leadership and our trainers in restructuring what coaching looks like in the Wenatchee School District. So thank you for your creativity and your intentionality for the work. So again, thank you.
We do have one action item, which is the Wenatchee Education Association collective bargaining agreement.
Excellent. So all we are asking for here is approval of the WNEA collective bargaining agreement that was recently ratified. And so we put that in front of you so that the board can take action on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope everyone had a chance to review that CBA. Do I have a motion to approve the CBA between the Wenatchee School District and the Wenatchee Education Association?
Move to approve the collective bargaining agreement between Wenatchee School District and Wenatchee Education Association extending from September 1st, 2023 through August 31st, 2025.
I second that.
We have a motion by Julie and a second by Laura. Do we have any discussion? I would like to say just thank you to the bargaining group and to the district group as well for making this a smooth process for all. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the collective bargaining agreement between the Wenatchee School District and the Wenatchee Education Association from September 23 through August 25, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
For clarification purposes, was that a aye to approve or aye to oppose?
That was a late aye to approve.
Thank you.
I tried to move as fast as I could.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have the superintendent report.
All right. So a couple of announcements and then I'll get to my report, but just wanted to talk to our board and our community here. So following more than a few potentially recent arrests in our local school districts, including our own, I just want to take a minute to reassure our staff, our students, and our families that the Wenatchee School District does take these situations very seriously. While we cannot share any details about the allegations, we can confirm that they do not involve any Wenatchee School District students. We will continue to work closely with law enforcement as the investigations continue and progress. As they are criminal investigations, we cannot answer any questions at this time, but we appreciate your patience and the trust of our community and knowing that safety is our top priority when it comes to our students and staff and our school community. And then in reference to safety, we want to emphasize ensuring the safety of our students is one of our top priority, if it isn't the top priority. Our staff and leaders strive to create our thriving environments as we talk about in our classrooms, buildings, buses, and extracurricular activities. Students' emotional and physical well-being in school is directly linked to their academic performance, and we recognize this fact. When safety and security concerns arise, students are encouraged to speak to a trusted adult at the school or report those concerns anonymously through our safety reporting system known as Vector, which is prominently located on our school and district's websites and available 24/7 for our students, staff, and parents to report any safety concerns that might arise. And they can do that by phone or text 844-336-1964. Additionally, school counselors, administrators, and social service staff are available to provide support at the building. And I mentioned this because we have a great deal of new families that are new to the Wenatchee School District this year. And so also look in the future for a wealth of information that'll be coming both using our Bloom's correspondence tool, and I believe it'll be in our weekly as well. So just get that information out for everyone. And I also just want to acknowledge that we are in week 3. If we didn't realize that, it may feel like longer or it may feel like less. I don't know how fast your time's going, but this is week 3, and I'm hearing throughout our system that this year feels a little bit different for staff. And so I just want to recognize that and just share that if you all remember, as a system, we made a host of staff reductions last year amidst budget crisis. And those reductions, as well as 20+ positions that are still vacant in our system, are making this year feel very different for our educators. And so I just want to recognize that As a district, we've been open and transparent about the impacts of this multi-year budget concern. We are literally in year one of intentional reductions to help us get closer to balancing those revenues and expenses. A term that we've been using as a cabinet here is right sizing, or what I like to say, adjusting to live within our means. And I want to take this time to acknowledge that our system is feeling a little bit of the impact of that reduction in staff this year. And what's great is our staff is rising to the challenge, and just as we expected them to. And everyone's working their tails off to make sure that our students do not feel the impact of the staff reductions. Quite literally, the buffer for that work is our staff, and taking responsibility of ensuring that our students don't feel the outcomes of staff reductions or vacant positions. This is the work that we'll continue to do, because that's what the Wenatchee School District does. We take on challenges, we persevere through hard times, and I want to thank our district and everyone involved that we see you, we honor the work that you're doing, and you're appreciated. We will continue to find creative ways to support our staff as we work through the challenges that will present themselves this year. We'll look into additional hiring fairs potentially and outside of the box thinking. And I will personally be sharing with each school, department, association, our board, and our supportive community what the lay of the land is with regard to our budget beginning in October. And so I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, and thank you for the time to allow me to do that. I'll move on to the normal superintendent's report, and I'm going to talk about the Chelan County Fair. Very exciting. Diana and I were able to make it to the fair last Thursday, where we were able to see Wenatchee High School students engaging actively in sheep and pig showing, and it was awesome. While we were there, our new Wenatchee High School communications specialist, Kate Williams, was interviewing multiple students. She took a ton of pictures, and those will appear in Wenatchee High School social media and newsletters. We were able to meet with a couple of students who had just completed the steer judging competition, and one of them had taken the first place ribbon. So she was super excited about that. And then finally, we checked in with Bridget and Noah at the VEX Robotics team from Foothills Middle School and learned about their upcoming new competition challenge. As you know, the challenge changes every year. So there's a variety of these balls and squares and things that they have to get into these certain areas. It looks super hard. But the team showed us their current robot and performed on the field that was set up there. And the fair was a great time, as usual. And I actually look forward to hearing more of the comprehensive outcomes of our students at the fair. So I haven't actually seen all of that yet. So I'm excited. Then we had, they didn't get to see this, but Diana did. And this is good. So we had the JROTC flights with the Civil Air Patrol. So the cadets from Wenatchee Air Force Junior ROTC flew alongside the pilots in the Civil Air Patrol at Pangbourne last week, which sounds exhilarating and dangerous. This is an exciting opportunity for our JROTC cadets who were experiencing this for the very first time. But it was a chance for them to build strong relationships with the Civil Air Patrol. During the flight, evidently, the cadets were able to apply what they had learned in the classroom in the program's aerospace curriculum, making it an excellent example of hands-on learning. And the military, I guess, refers to that as curriculum in action. I say that's curriculum in action. So the JROTC program has been in existence for the last 2 years and has grown to over 60 cadets. Super cool. Fiestas Mexicanas last weekend was the huge event in Triangle Park, and Triangle Park was hopping all weekend long. The entire weekend was incredible. It was such a great example of our strategic plan's priority of partnerships in action. We had numerous agency booths, tons of food, great food, vendors, a multitude of other sponsors and groups were on hand for the fun. El Grito celebration happened Saturday evening at 6:30. Host of elected officials were on hand, executive directors of various agencies, a couple of board members. It was great. I was fortunate enough to be able to say a few words about how honored we were to host the event at Triangle Park and partner with Fiestas Mexicanas. And I look forward to next year's celebration already. We had another student podcast receive an honorable mention from NPR last spring. Wenatchee School senior Sophie Macon along with her 2023 graduates, Emmy Sutton and Aileen Orozco, submitted their podcast titled Life Inside the Green Band Tents to National Public Radio Student Podcast Challenge. We all remember that. Their podcast was given an honorable mention out of 3,300 submissions across the state, across the country. And the piece tells the story of Wenatchee High School band students who used the green pop-up tents to continue playing music during the pandemic. After the photo of the students went viral. The podcast offers a unique perspective on how students navigated the challenges posed by the pandemic and continued to persevere through their passion for music. So this is the second student podcast from Wenatchee High School to be selected for a national honor. So I appreciate that. Very cool. Again, I want to thank the Cafe Leadership Academy for joining us tonight. Thank you for being here. And that's it for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to our board communication. I have a lot to say, so I'll let you guys go first.
So got some good and bad news. So bad news, you probably all have now heard that the Supreme Court weighed in on capital funding being part of basic education, and it's not. So all the more reason we're going to have to look internally to be able to improve our facilities over time. I know that was kind of one of the questions I always had in my mind is, well, why can't we have facilities similar to anywhere else in the state if we're supposed to educate to the same standards? But the Supreme Court has weighed in and said, no, capital facilities are not part of the basic education that the state is required to support. So disappointing on that front. But the good news is I have very much appreciated all the hard work and enjoyed the first 3 weeks of school. It's been very busy having 3 kids now in 3 different schools. I feel like I've experienced all of it at some level. I really enjoyed some of the articles that came out in the paper and were shared on the district websites of the welcomes to both the new students and to the new administrators at the schools. I thought there were some really fun, neat articles to introduce some of our new principals or principals in new roles that kind of was exciting for the new year. I've had a lot of time going to all these school events now so far in the first 3 weeks. It feels like things have actually, for this being what I would consider really the first real year back with everything kind of churning like it did, all the preschool welcomes, everything sort of on schedules, sports, activities, everything starting. It feels more seamless than I expected it to. So I appreciate all the staff, the work that's going into that to making students and parents feel seen and heard during these first 3 stressful weeks. Speaking of activities, it's Battle of the Bridge week. So come out to all the fun, especially high school events this week. I think we've got soccer tomorrow, volleyball Thursday, and football Friday. So should be fun. Come show our support. The weather should be great. So all the more reason. And I just one need for improvement. I know we're rolling out this new Blooms platform. I'm liking the messaging format so far, but I'm finding it a little bit confusing. Sometimes understanding what building or whether this is a district-wide communication or a teacher or a special programmatic communication. So, you know, a very specific thing from a parent in the district. So, but I'm guessing if I'm feeling it, some other parents may be experiencing it as well, because I've got a few updates and I'm going, what school is this? What kid do I need to do this for? So I'm not entirely sure. So I'm getting the messages and I appreciate it, but I don't know how we clarify a little better where they're coming from so I don't have to read it 4 times. Yep.
I guess I'll go next. I simply want to thank all the staff of the Wenatchee School District for everything they do at the start of a challenging year and have great confidence in you. The second area I wanted to launch into is partnerships are part of our strategic plan, and we already heard about Fiestas Mexicanas. I saw that as a tribute to the whole Wenatchee community. The number of civic organizations there working together was just simply awesome. And I think the whole community can be proud of that. And the school district is part of that. And I see those partnerships maturing and gaining strength. And, you know, this morning, people met in this room. in a similar vein. And Cafe, thank you very much for being here. I'm really glad of your outreach to understand how civic government works. And you have your gala on Thursday night. Looking forward to that. And then another, following on maturing, the CORPAC board of the Parent Advisory Committee for Bilingual and Migrant Parents met last week. And they are making great strides in learning their authority and how to manage. And what kind of interested me is I had no idea that they actually approved their budget. And they had about a 10-page budget to look through, not like the 300-page one we get. And it's a part of the 300-page one we had, but seeing that what's involved in this kind of work and gaining strength. And October the 4th will be the multilingual night at the high school, I believe. So that kind of inter-civic group, school district being very much a part of it, that's something that I think is very valuable. It feeds on the community. It feeds on the help that goes into the school district to support our activities, extracurricular and other. Thank you.
Catherine?
You can use my time, Maria. I'm all good.
I don't have that much. I just want to say thank you, Dr. Kalahar, for acknowledging the safety component of our staff, students. Again, I concur, students, staff safety is a #1 priority for the district and for me as well. Thank you for acknowledging the climate of our district, given the budget and staffing constraints. We see you, we hear you. Last week, I attended the Panther Parent Night at Wenatchee High School, and it was a really neat event. I saw Dr. Kelhar there, and it was just amazing to see how many community partners were there with their tables, but also our Wenatchee High School staff and our district staff there that evening. The amount of support services that we have for our students, it's great within the community and the district. So thank you for taking that time out of their busy evenings to be there available for our students and our families. During that time, I got to talk to 2 cadets from the ROTC program, and I learned so much from them with my 10-minute conversation with them. And I encourage you guys to they were, in their full regalia. It was really neat to see them. And I heard all about the flight simulation. One of them got to fly and take control. So that was really neat. I also got to talk to our 3 of our avid students who were greeting the community. Again, I learned so much from just engaging with them for a short amount of time. I won't speak too much on Fiestas Mexicanas, but it was also great to see district leadership at the stage there for El Grito. And thank you for the district leadership for coming together and embracing the cultural activity. It was hard to miss. If you drove by Miller or Orondo, or we're at the soccer game or the football game on Friday, you couldn't have missed it. That is it for my update. Just a couple of reminders. We have a workshop scheduled for next week, the 18th at 1. Okay. And then the General Assembly is still scheduled for September 22nd and 23rd. I believe Catherine will be attending that remotely. And our next regular board meeting is scheduled for September 26th. At this time,
one more thing. I just want to say that I will be absent from the 18th meeting. I will be out of the country.
Well, we'll be here. Hopefully you'll think about us on your trip. If there is no further communication at this time, the school board will now recess into executive session for a period of 30 minutes to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment, to review the performance of a staff member, or to receive and evaluate complaints or charges brought against a director or staff member. Pursuant to district policy number 1410 and RCW 4230.11.0, this discussion will be closed to the public. The school board is not expected to take final action following the executive session. Thank you. The school board is extending the executive session for a period of 15 minutes until 8:10. Meeting is adjourned.